if you do want this person to be in prison for years, you should be an advocate for it happening the right way. I'm here to inspire people to think for themselves, to not be following the masses because the M is silent. It's Jay here, Conversations with Jay. I give it to you straight, no chase. I don't know how to fake. It's not in my DNA. So let's get into the things that Sean Puffy Combs is actually charged for, okay? So he's charged for the Mann Act. He's charged for trafficking, and he's charged for RICO. However, he has 5 charges because he has 2 charges with the Mann Act and he has 2 charges with trafficking. Now, I know there's been a lot of mix-up with why there's 2 charges with the Mann Act and why there's only 2 charges with trafficking, and that's because there's only 2 victims. Now, they said there was going to be 3 victims, but 1 victim didn't end up showing up, and they couldn't get a hold of her, and so he's charged with the Mann Act, and the prosecution has directly pulled Cassie and Jane Doe into the Mann Act. So 1 charge for Cassie, 1 charge for Jane Doe. And the same thing happened with sexual trafficking. Now, what you guys are obviously seeing in the media is, oh, well, he's charged with the Mann Act for the escorts or for the entertainment or whatever they call it. Here's the thing. I believe the prosecution is trying to use those stories and those instances to kind of blur the lines and make everything kind of a smokescreen. But they made it very clear that these 2 charges separately, obviously, for each of those 2 offenses are for those 2 victims. And so they may try to change it later on. I don't know how this trial is going to go on later on, but I'm going to give you guys the Mann Act first, and then how this applies to the trial, not only just for the 2 victims, but I'm also going to address what you guys are seeing in the media as well, and how that applies for the things that they're saying in the media, particularly with the escorts and entertainment, okay? So if you guys don't mind, let's pull up the Mann Act on the screen, and then we'll be able to kind of go through the actual statute, because I want to teach you guys how to look this up. Now, all you really got to do is go to Google, and you can find everything out on Google as it pertains to these particular charges. Now, I always got to tell people and remind people, because, you know, I be in the courtroom all the time, and then people say, oh, are you a lawyer? Or on the YouTube videos that I do on either our channel or other channel, we get comments like, he thinks he's a lawyer. Hey, guys, I've said this once, I've said it 1,000 times, and I'm going to say it 1,000 times more. If you yourself are a trial lawyer or something, you know, close to a trial lawyer, I definitely respect that. And I respect anybody who's put time into anything. Let's just be clear. If you are not a trial lawyer or anything close to that, to me, you're a glorified researcher. And I always say, I can research too, okay? And if you're watching this video, you can also research too. So you may look like a lawyer, or you may be, as people want to say to me, you know, the people who are against Diddy or anything to do with that, they're going to say, I'm acting like a lawyer. I don't act like a lawyer. I just speak on what I know based on my research. And this is what I'm teaching you guys to do today. And then there's other people who say, is he a lawyer? Or they'll say, maybe he's a lawyer, but he's just pretending not to be. Guys, I am not a lawyer, okay? I'm just a person that researches case study and the law as it pertains to myself, my situation, or any particular case in any particular situation, all right? All you got to do is Google the actual offense and ask what the statute is, the federal statute is for that offense. So in this particular case, one of the resources was Cornell Law School. Let me know in the comments if Cornell Law School you believe is not a good source. So let me go through the Mann Act for you guys. Now, the Mann Act, that's the first charge of transporting a person or persons across state lines for the intention of prostitution. As you can see, the Mann Act, you might have actually have heard the White Slave Traffic Act of 1910. Now, here's the important thing to remember about this, guys. It's 1910, okay? There was a reason why this law was put in, and there's a reason why it's so old. It's because this was happening. Now, they weren't being flown out. This is an outdated statute. And if he gets found guilty and the conviction is upheld, I anticipate that there's going to be an adjustment to this. We're talking about 1910. We're in the year 2025. Okay. It's a federal law that criminalizes the transportation of any woman or girl. Do you see? It doesn't even say man, even though it's called the Mann Act. But do you see of any woman or girl for the purpose of prostitution or debauchery or for any other immoral purpose? Immoral. This is a very, very old statute. This tells you right here, immoral. What is immoral in 1910 versus immoral today? What is even debauchery in 1910 versus debauchery today? And then they only had any woman or any girl, right? So already we got issues with this particular act. Already we got issues in this particular act. The Mann Act passed in June 1910 and named after Illinois Congressman James R. Mann, where you get the act from, invoked the Commerce Clause to felonize the use of interstate or foreign commerce to transport women. The idea here is that people were transporting women for prostitution. All right. Now we're in an equal world. You might be able to do that too. Or maybe, just maybe, and I am leaning this way, they only have 2 charges for the Mann Act for the 2 female victims, not the male escorts that they were transporting. Now, notice I didn't say transporting for the sake of prostitution, just transporting escorts and or entertainment. It may be the reason that they don't have 5, 7, 8, 10, because apparently there were like 30, 40, 50 of these people over the period from since Cassie to Jane Doe. So why wouldn't they be able to put some of these other people on the stand to say, yes, I was transported for this reason? They've only put 2 men on the stand so far that call themselves escorts. And one of the men actually said he never left New York. He was always in New York when he met them. And he's born and raised in New York. He's born in Brooklyn. He's raised in Harlem. And he's only met them in New York. So what was even the point of putting him on the stand to bolster this statement and then the other ones? So I believe what the prosecution is really trying to say is that he was moving these women who are his girlfriends, which is already problematic, for prostitution, which also doesn't make any sense because he's not getting any money for paying for bringing the woman. He's actually paying money to bring the woman. So as we continue, and again, guys, this is why we break this down so we can understand in our own minds and we can use our own brains and be logical about this. All right. The act was aimed at prostitution, immorality, and human trafficking. Congress appointed a commission in 1907 to investigate into the problem of immigrant prostitutes. So now you're setting a brand new precedent that is not even close to what is here right now. And they look at that. And oftentimes they'll overturn it, or the judge will overturn it, because they don't only look at if you technically broke the law. They look at what the law was made for in the first place. What was the purpose of this law in the first place? This is trying to fit a square peg in a round circle, because this was never made for somebody like Sean Puffy Combs or like Hugh Hefner or like any of these people. It was alleged that immigrant women were brought to America for sexual slavery, and immigrant men lured American girls into prostitution or white slavery. The committees believed that no girl would enter prostitution unless drugged or held captive. This led to public outrage, which eventually resulted in the enactment of the Mann Act. Okay, now I'm not going to go through the rest. So now we're in the actual statute, and this is what he's actually charged with. It's known as the Mann Act. I just got to give you guys an overview of that, because a lot of people say the charges don't fit. That's what they're talking about, because you're trying to change the entire precedent of an entire statute, which is very, very difficult. And I know a lot of you guys are watching CNN and ABC and CBS and all this. They all have an agenda. That's why they're so rich, right? I'm just giving it to you Straight up, no chaser, right down the middle. I'm looking at the stuff. I'm putting it on the screen myself. All right. And this is what the jurors are going to see, because the judge is going to give them specific jury instructions that are based on this. And he's going to put it in layman's terms for them. And he's going to explain to them, this is how simple this can be. And if he does this, then you can find him guilty of this. And if he does not do this, then you cannot find him guilty of this. Now, I heard that the jury instructions are over 130 pages. So the jury might be deliberating just over the instructions over maybe 2 days. So this will probably not come back for a while. It's not like the O.J. Simpson trial where everybody said, why did the jury come back in like 45 minutes or an hour or whatever? This is very different. Whoever knowingly, remember knowingly, guys, remember that knowingly, whoever knowingly transports any individual in interstate or foreign commerce or in any territory or possession of the United States with intent that such individual engage in prostitution or in any sexual activity for which any person can be charged with a criminal offense. Attempts to do so shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years on or both. Okay, so we'll get to B, 1 and 2 in a second, but I just want to highlight knowingly, and I want to highlight attempts. Knowingly, in this particular case with Sean Puffy Combs, I believe that this is a problem for him, for the defense, because the defense is going to say something like, we hired escorts, we hired entertainment. We didn't know that they were going to do that. It wasn't knowingly that that's what it was for, right? Again, whoever knowingly transports any individual in interstate or foreign commerce or any territory or possession of the United States with the intent. If you're knowing that that is the intent, that such individual engage in this act, that's a problem. Now, the other key word that I probably missed is in the engage in prostitution. So we're going to get there in a second. Okay. The other one is attempts to do so. So even if you didn't know that you're doing that and engaging in this act of prostitution, also, if they get there and you try to attempt to do it, right? Or if they attempted to and the person didn't go. Let's say they attempted to and they didn't end up going past the state lines. According to this, even if you attempt to do so, you shall be fined. So you knew what you were doing, and even if the person didn't arrive or whatever, and you still attempted, then that's an attempt to do so. Okay, these are both very important things to understand. Let's keep moving forward, and then I'll give you my commentary because this is as much as I'm going to read. B, request to prosecute violations by state attorney general. Okay, the attorney general shall grant a request by a state attorney general. That is it. Yeah, actually, we really don't even need to read this part, to be honest with you, because the only reason why we're talking about this is because this is number one, the Mann Act is part of the RICO, and number two, because this is what he's directly charged for, and it's above state's federal charge. So one of the things that I really need people to understand is knowingly. Knowingly is very important because you have to be aware. Prostitution is very important because prostitution is the act of selling, whether you are selling your own body or you're selling somebody else's body, in this case, somebody else's body. And then number three is attempt. Even if that wasn't the case, it was an attempt. The prosecution leaning on these three elements. The defense is leaning on a totally different thing. The defense is trying to say that there's no way that any of these three elements can be met because prostitution is not met. And so it doesn't matter if you're knowing or you attempt it, it's not prostitution. Let me explain what I mean. What you guys keep hearing on mainstream media is sex workers, prostitution, sex workers, prostitution, sex workers, prostitution. We're not hearing that in the trial. In the trial, we're hearing Cowboys and Angels, escort company. We're hearing escort. We're hearing entertainment. We're hearing dancers. None of those are prostitutes. And I know a lot of people say, well, it's just fancy words for, it's not a fancy word for a prostitute. The same way that an OnlyFans model can go from Texas to New York in order to star in a video and get paid by either the production company or the other person that they're starring with or whatever that world is. I'm not that familiar with the world, but I know how it works. The same way they can do that and travel across state lines and get paid is the same way that a person can go and fly out to California or San Diego or Los Angeles or San Francisco and go and star in an adult film, okay, is the same exact thing that separates it from prostitution. This is the whole reason why this whole cowboys and angels even exists. Think about it. Make it make sense in your mind, okay? How is it that this cowboys and angels company exists in states that it is illegal to have prostitutes? How is it that it even existed before it was even legal for prostitution in certain areas? How is it that this even existed? So let me get this straight. Sean Diddy Combs is getting charged for hiring these people, but these companies aren't getting charged for taking his money. So the person that's making money is not getting charged, but the person that's giving their money is getting charged. So here's my prediction. The defense, a lot of people are saying the defense is not going to be able to get behind this. They're not going to be able to do anything about this. They're going to bring the CEOs or the managers or the supervisors or the founders of companies like this, the adult film companies, the escort companies, the dancing companies, all of this stuff. They're going to bring those people on the stand to explain to the jury how this actually works. Because the average person don't know how it works. They don't understand. A lot of rich men, actors, athletes, entertainers, singers, rappers, they hire female escorts, whatever, that they can find on Instagram or otherwise. And they say, hey, my boy's getting married, bachelor party in Turks and Caicos. You guys want to come? The strippers are going to say, well, you got to pay me for my time. You got to pay me to dance. You got to pay me to be there. No problem. Come on. We'll pay you. Okay. They're flown out of the country because it said international, right? Or they're flown to Vegas, or they're flown wherever this bachelor party takes place. Are you to tell me if any of those strippers or any of those female escorts or any of those ladies that are there to give company and entertainment to the men end up sleeping with any of the men? Are you to tell me that that is a violation of the Mann Act? At this point, you can go and comment below. Because that's the precedent we're setting. Except they're not females, they're males. So there were the two ladies on the stand, Cassie and Jane, that testified to doing these things and basically having intercourse with men that were flown out and were paid for their time and experience. But that's what they're paid for. So the defense is standing on, this is not paid for. This is paid for them to come and entertain, hang out, time and experience. And this is what the defense is going to stand on. Because the Punisher guy, the first 2-3 times, you go back and look at the transcripts, he did not have intercourse with Cassie. He said he was not comfortable. She said, come over, do a dance, all that kind of stuff. And whatever you're comfortable with, you're comfortable with. He testified to saying at least the first time, I'm pretty sure it was 2-3 times, he did not do anything except for massager and this and that. He said that because I wasn't comfortable. Over time, I got comfortable with that. So if he was paid to have intercourse and he did not have intercourse, then he would not have gotten paid, right? But he still got paid. The defense is going to lean on this. They paid everybody, whether they did it or not. There were many times that these male escorts, these male dancers, these male entertainers did not actually have intercourse and they were still paid. which the defense is going to say they got paid to be there. They did not get paid to have intercourse. Otherwise, if they didn't have intercourse, they wouldn't get paid. So this is how the adult film industry became a billion-dollar industry and gets around the Mann Act. This is how these escort companies get around the Mann Act, because they're not specifically paid to do that. And it makes perfect sense as to why they're able to do that, because if you go back to the beginning of the reason why the Mann Act even existed, is because it was trying to protect women, specifically immigrant women, and specifically immigrant men that were coming to the country and then putting women into prostitution and making them travel around. So the law recognizes that those things that we're talking about when it comes to adult films and escorts and dancers and even now OnlyFans, the law is recognizing that those aren't really what this was all about to begin with. Now, the prosecution is trying to put a square peg in a round hole. And I don't know if you've ever tried to fit a square peg in a round hole, but it doesn't mean it won't fit. It means it's very difficult to fit. Now, I'm going to close off with this. To me, that is not right. That is not justice. It clearly shows you're trying to get him for other things, and you're trying to make this one stick and make this one fit. And that's very dangerous. And every single person who is, even whether you live in this country, whether you're visiting, you should be concerned, because this law applies to all of the above. And you really do need to be concerned with a legal system that is supposed to be out for justice, trying to twist certain principles of certain laws and things like that in order to get somebody that they want to get. You could be next. And that's why I care. It's nothing to do with Sean Puffy Combs. Although I think he's been great for our community, I think he's great for Black men as it pertains to the music industry and business and the things that he's accomplished and the things that he's given to us. I don't know the man in person, so I have no judgment of his character. But his track record as it pertains to business and what he's accomplished in business, no matter how he's accomplished it, because there's a lot of rumors that he hasn't gone the right way in accomplishing those things. And what he's done for business, he's broken down barriers and opened doors. Yes, of course, I have some sort of feeling toward that, because me as a businessman myself and as a former entertainer, not the entertainers in the freak-offs, I was a singer, and I was an athlete. I'm not talking about that. But my point is, for me, that helps me to feel like, yes, I am inspired by this person, and put your personal life over here, okay? But my point is, this is not what that's about. I'm not here today because of that. I'm here today for leadership. I'm here today to hopefully influence or inspire people to think for themselves, to do their own research, to not be following the masses because the M is silent, to actually have your own opinion and go with what you believe is right based off your own research, not based off of what you heard, not based off what somebody told you, and definitely not based off of your feelings. And I will tell you one last thing, guys. If the jurors, which is what the prosecution is clearly trying to do, they're trying to evoke emotion in jurors. If the jurors make this decision over emotion, it will not stand. It will be overturned by another judge, or I think it would have to be another judge, or it will definitely be overturned by an appeal court. So if you do want this person to be in prison for years, you should be an advocate for it happening the right way. Otherwise, it's going to get overturned anyway. And it's not because he's rich, and it's not because he's powerful, and it's not because he's an entertainer, and it's not because he has an amazing legal team. It's because these were the wrong charges. At least this one. We'll get to the next one and the next one and the next one. But at least this charge, it's not the right one based on what we just looked at. All right, guys, this is Jay from Khanversations with Jay. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if you love me or hate me. If you hate me, it's even more fuel. If you love me, it's more and more and more fuel. So just whatever you have, leave it below. I appreciate all you guys. And if I've said anything wrong, challenge me, because I am a thought leader. I'm not a follower. So challenge me so I can educate myself, or maybe educate you if that's what's necessary. All right. I appreciate everybody being here. Please, guys, send this video to somebody so they can understand what this is all about. I appreciate everybody here, and go and be great. Peace.